Most athletes are trying to get rid of their anxiety in order to perform at their best. But the ultra elite athletes understand that they don't want to get rid of it. They actually need it to perform. If you're new to this channel, I'm Lewis, former professional athlete, now mindset and mental performance coach for professional athletes. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly why your performance anxiety isn't something that you want to get rid of. It's something that you need. Let's get into it. All right, every athlete's been there, that you warm up perfectly, everything feels good, you feel confident, smooth, and relaxed. But the moment the whistle blows, suddenly your body stops to listen. Your muscles tighten, your heart rate spikes, and your mind starts to race. Suddenly the skill that you've performed 1,000 times feels foreign. You overthink every move and you tighten up. And the most annoying thing is that the harder you try to calm down, the worse it gets. And this is the paradox of pressure. The very thing that got you ready for your performance, the surge of adrenaline, the alertness, becomes the very thing that ruins it. But back in 1908, Robert Yerkes and John Dodson came up with a very simple experiment. Originally based towards mice in order to try and achieve a task, what they found now still explains how athletes perform under pressure. What they found was that performance doesn't only just increase as your arousal increases, that it actually follows an inverted U-curve. At the very start, as your arousal or your anxiety begins to increase, so does your performance. You become focused, energized, you're locking in. But there is a certain point that once you go past it, your performance begins to drop off. You start to lose control, your attention starts to become cloudy, and what once felt automatic now becomes difficult. And this is what they called the Yerkes-Dodson law. And it's basically the science to explain as to why you need some nerves to perform, but not too much. At the beginning, on one side, you have too little pressure. You're flat, you're bored, and understimulated. In the middle, you're switched on, you're at your best, you're feeling confident, composed, and it is your optimal zone of performance. But past that, this is where you start to become overstressed. You start to become anxious, tensed, and likely to choke. And the important thing to understand here is that every athlete has their own version of this curve, that your curve will depend on how you personally are. Some athletes need more intensity in order to feel alive. Others may need to have a sense of calm and steadiness in order to be in their optimal zone. And so the secret of these elite performers isn't about removing anxiety, it's about understanding where your zone sits. Because once you know where that sweet spot is, you'll then start to be able to turn nerves into fuel rather than fear. And so there's a few ways in which you can do that. First off is to understand your anxiety. While 99% of athletes are running away from their anxiety, the very best are learning to understand it. Start to learn about where your optimal zone is. Look at past performances, training sessions. Where did it become too much? Or maybe where was it too little, where you became complacent, bored, and you didn't even start to perform? The more you're able to gather that understanding of your anxiety, the better relationship you have with it. And if you do want to actually build a better relationship with this, exactly why we built the Mind Strong Sport app, you can get started using meditations, visualizations, courses. It's in the link in the description of this video to get started for you, totally free to start. Number two is to release your pressure valves. The pressure that you feel in competition doesn't just build on the day. It can start not only hours, but days and even weeks before that day has arrived. And so your skill as an athlete is to learn how to release pressure on a continuous basis. When you've had a tough training session, when you've had a day where things haven't gone your way, rather than allowing that pressure to build and start to build and build and build to eventually where it has to explode, you start to understand that you can release your pressure bit by bit along the way. For every athlete, that may look completely different. It might be meditations, breathing exercises, maybe even some deep relaxation. But for others and athletes I've worked with, it could be completely detaching from your sport entirely. I've worked with and been with athletes that played a round of golf the day before they had a big performance coming up. Being able to mentally and physically detach from your performance before it happens can give you the space you need to release that pressure. But you have to be an active participant in planning to get this done. You have to schedule it in. You have to start to build the skills and develop them. Because if you don't do that and don't allow yourself to slowly release that pressure, don't be surprised that it explodes when you didn't expect. And finally, you want to build your routine. I once had a golfer come to me who was hitting the ball well off the driving range. They knew exactly the setup so they could execute the shot, but then they got to competition on a Saturday and everything changed. When I asked them what was going through their head when they were standing at the tee, they said, "My arms and my legs don't feel the same and I don't know what's going on." When I asked him more about his setup and what it included, it was obvious. All of his routine was built towards the physical components to execute the skill, and nothing had a mental component at all. And so what we ended up building was a pre-set up routine, and all it was a simple breath. Yeah, it was that easy. But it was the fact that we added it in a part of of the process, because 99% of athletes focus on building a routine that allows them to execute that skill, but then when they get under pressure, it falls apart because they've missed this mental component. And if you want to be able to perform under pressure, you have to learn how to focus under pressure. So start to build your routine and then practice it in training. Each athlete's process is going to be completely individual. For some, it might be taking a breath. For some, it might be using self-talk. But for you, it will be individual and you will have to practice it. Once you've built that routine, start to see how it works when you add pressure into your training. Learn and adapt to how you can maybe use it better, maybe what worked, and over time you'll develop that perfect routine that you can lock in and mentally perform. So if you found yourself getting frustrated at having anxiety and it's got in your way, hopefully this video has helped. Know that your anxiety is something that you need in order to perform. Don't run from it, build a better relationship with it. And if you start to get this, then you might be ready to build that mindset of a world champion. And I explain that in this video, which you're going to want to watch next.